Hey YouTube, I'm at the Hanford National Wildlife Refuge in southeastern Washington. This is day one of my 4-day trip to photograph the landscapes and wildlife here at Hanford Reach and also at the Columbia National Wildlife Refuge. Across the river is the Hanford site. It's the Department of Energy's site they built during World War II to produce uranium to support the war. So I've been walking along the riverbank looking for sites to photograph. Found several sites with the bluff in the foreground and the river snaking off in the background. So I'm checking those out, and right now I'm in the sand dunes looking at possibly photographing them as well. So just scouting right now. I've got a couple hours till sunset, and still looking for that nice sunset shot. All right, here's my first composition. I've got the sand dune and the river, my two major subjects. The sun is coming down, but it's still pretty bright. There's a cloud bank just below it. I'm going to hold off on taking this photo until the sun is really close to that cloud bank. And then there is a gap below that cloud bank, so I'll wait and take another set then. I've positioned the camera really low to emphasize the texture here in the foreground. And I'll be doing both exposure bracketing and focus stacking. Probably a 3-shot focus stack and a 3-shot bracket, so a total of 9 images. So I'm just going to wait a few more minutes for the sun to get just a little bit lower, still above that little cloud bank. And I'll take a set then, and then I'll take one more set as the sun pops out of the cloud bank. Alright, actually I've decided to take 5 shots in my exposure bracket. My base exposure is f16, shutter speed 1/25 of a second, and ISO 100. So I'm going to bracket 2 stops above and 2 stops below that, total of 5 images. And then I'll repeat that for each of the 3 focus points. I'm very happy with how this image came out. I love the texture revealed in the rippled sand in the foreground and the sunset reflected off the river in the background. It was important to me that the river be present enough in the image to provide context to the location of the sand dune. While the river only makes up a small portion of the image area, its brightness and the contrast with its little islands are visually strong enough to pull you away from the foreground sand and into the back of the image. This gives the image depth and provides the context of the sand dune being located next to the Columbia River. Alright, good morning. It's day 2, and I'm in the Lower Crab Creek Wildlife Area. There's a pond just over here. It has, I think it's a real nice landscape shot. It's an old burned out tree next to the pond in these nice yellow reeds. So I'm going to go down there and photograph that first thing. I'm also going to take my wildlife lens. Hopefully I'll find some good bird shots down there. So that's the plan for this morning, and let's get to it. Alright, I'm here on the side of the lake. You can see the tree here in the background. That's my main subject. And as the sun rises behind it, I'm hoping it'll also light up all these reeds and grasses and make a really nice shot. So, just a matter of waiting for the sun now. Mosquitoes are out, the fish are jumping, so it's a beautiful morning. The warm light of sunrise did in fact light up the golden reeds, allowing the form of the burned out Russian olive tree to stand out in stark contrast. This image was also focus stacked in an attempt to keep everything sharp from front to back. Because the wind was already starting to build up, I made several shots at each focus point, trying to time them with still moments in the air. Well, I've been driving around all day and just scouting photo locations in the area. So far I've scouted 3 out of the 5 areas that I wanted to photograph. Yeah, I found so far, mapped out 7 places for sunset photos and 2 for sunrise photos. So a little bit lopsided, but I can always come back and get some of those. So one of the sunset locations has a waterfall, which probably doesn't run year-round, or doesn't run as as nice as it is right now. It's really in perfect shape. So I'm going to go there and photograph that tonight. And it's about 2 hours to sunset. So plenty of time to get there and get set up and find a good composition. For sunrise, there's a place not too far from camp, looking kind of down on a river with a beautiful S-curve to it and some flowers in the foreground. So it may be a little bit tricky exposure-wise. I'm going to give that a shot tomorrow morning. So, and then I'll try to scout at least one of the other two regions tomorrow. I'm not sure I'm going to get to all 5 on this trip, but I could. We'll see. All right, so to the waterfall. All right, I don't know if you can hear me over the waterfall or not, but there's the waterfall. All right, enough of that audio. What I'm saying here is that this little waterfall seemed like a unique thing to find in this arid landscape, at least running this well. This creek doesn't even have a name on the map and probably runs dry in the summer and fall. I really like the basalt cliffs in the background, but they are a bit too front-lit for my tastes. A little more side light would help bring out the texture in the rocks. Anyway, here's how my shot of the waterfall turned out. I'm not too thrilled with this shot. I think it is interesting foreground subject, but the light is not working for me here, with the waterfall already in the shade and the distant cliffs sort of out of view in the distance, and the sky isn't really doing anything for me here. But I did find this view looking out over Lower Crab Creek while driving back to my campsite. Here in this photo, I'm working with fading twilight, but I really like the potential for this site. This is definitely a place I'll be coming back to on future trips. Good morning. It's day 3 of my Eastern Washington photography trip. I got this little river here as my sunrise subject. Actually, what I'm photographing right now is this direction. The photo I actually want to take is from this bank over there looking upstream. There's flowers in the foreground. It's a little bit breezy, so I'm not sure it's going to work out. So I'm going to go ahead and take this shot first. Really basic, f11, bracketing my exposures, and pretty simple composition as well. So I'll grab this one and then I'll head over there and see what it looks like looking downstream. Here's how that first shot came out. Pretty basic scene, but nothing that spectacular. In my opinion, the image is a bit too basic, and so I moved on to the other shooting position. Alright, here's that second shot I mentioned. The flowers are not working out as a foreground subject just because they're a little bit too far back from the bank, and so you really don't get to see this front sweep of the river with the flowers in the scene. So I found a nice piece of sage here to use in the foreground, and that's working out for me. But yeah, beautiful morning. I'm going to just wait for the sun to come above the horizon, and hopefully it's going to light up those basalt cliffs on the far side of the bank over there. The only challenge I may have is that the sun's coming up sort of directly behind me, and so I might be casting my own shadow onto this sage, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, beautiful morning, birds are out, there's a little bit of fog on the river down there. Here's how that shot came out, still in pre-dawn light. But I really prefer this image taken from a slightly different position just at sunrise. We've got nice warm morning light raking across the riverbank in the foreground, while some of the far riverbank is just beginning to see a bit of sunlight. With the S-curve of the river providing some good depth to the image, I think we might be able to create even more with a slightly tighter crop. Now the sage stands out a bit stronger as a foreground element to contrast with the distant background, helping to increase the illusion of depth. So just finished scouting the last 2 areas that I wanted to check out on this trip. Found a really good sunrise location I'm pretty excited about for tomorrow morning. But in the meantime, I'm just going to take a lunch break and then so here's my sunset location. I'm not really sure what these buttes are called or if they have a name or anything. They're just, I find them really beautiful, especially with the meadow in front of it and going all the way off into the distance. I don't know if you can see that there, but it's just a real beautiful meadow with real subtle flowers in it. So I've been kind of poking around trying to find the best set of flowers to use in my foreground with those buttes in the distance as the sun sets. Fortunately, it's a little bit windy out and the flowers are moving around pretty good. That'll make things a little bit tricky. So we'll have to see how that goes. Sometimes the wind will die down around sunset. So I've moved to this batch of flowers now. These are a lot shorter and more dense, kind of almost interlocked. So they not only do they not blow around as much in the wind, but when they do, they settle out a lot faster. So, and I like the dense look of it too. So, yep, things are looking pretty good. I got about another 20 minutes on the sunset, so I'm just gonna hop around taking both verticals and horizontals of these and looking for other batches of flowers. So here's how the horizontal shot came out. I really like how the expansive foreground wildflowers puts the basalt buttes in a big open setting. The sun is setting off to the left and grazing across the meadow, giving it contrast and texture. But it is this vertical image that I'm particularly happy with. I have moved the camera down closer to the ground now, making the foreground flowers much more apparent. This whole meadow has been exposed to wildfire and grazing, and these are actually invasive weeds, including clasping pepperweed and some sort of fiddleneck. But regardless, I find them quite beautiful in this landscape image, and the setting they bring to the basalt buttes. And here's a final composition, this time composed as a panoramic image in a 16:9 aspect ratio, made from 3 overlapping shots. All right, this is my morning photo location. I love this big basalt bluff here, and the sunrise should really light it up when it rises in about half an hour. The moon is sort of an extra bonus I didn't know about, but there's a nice yellow balsam root flower cluster out here that I scouted yesterday. So I'm going to see if I can find it. I think if I position myself for the flowers, then I will lose the moon behind the cliffs. So it's sort of a one or the other kind of a deal. But given the wind, I'm not sure the flowers are going to work out anyway. So maybe I'll take this shot with the moon now, before the sunrise, see if I can find the flowers. A couple of options to try out here. Now, if I could just find that yellow balsam root flower cluster, that would be great. Well, it's kind of windy up here. Hopefully you can hear me. I've climbed about halfway up the cliff for a different perspective on that bluff. So there's the bluff behind me there. And in the foreground are some pretty nice balsam root. Of course, it's still far too windy to photograph them. So the sunrise is about 15 minutes away. I'm just gonna, I think, take a photo, a classic simple photo of the bluff, and then looking down the valley, you can see the lake down there, and just all across the prairie. This is the channeled scablands. During the last ice age, tens of thousands of years ago, massive, there was a big ice dam that built up over Montana, western Montana. And over the ice ages, it broke loose like about 100 times, sending massive water across northern Idaho and eastern Washington. It all flowed through here. The combined flow, the flow of this flood was equivalent to the combined flows of all the rivers of the world combined. So pretty massive water. And that's what's scoured all these coulees and exposed all these basalt bluffs. So pretty interesting story from tens of thousands of years ago, but a really beautiful area. Anyway, I better get my composition figured out and ready for the sunrise. So this is the composition I ended up with. Sun's about 5 or 10 minutes away from rising. So we have the basalt cliffs, we have the lake, we have this kind of triangular rock here on the right, which I really like. It kind of anchors that corner of the frame. There's the moon in the upper right. It's very small. I'll probably just crop it out or clone it out. I don't think it's really adding much, and so it's such a small thing. The balsam root in the foreground, it's still pretty windy. I don't think they're going to be sharp in the photo, but I think I'll just live with that. Just provide a little bit of color to the scene. So anyway, just waiting for that sun to pop over the horizon and we'll get our shot. So here's a shot I ended up with. The sunrise put some warm color on the basalt and grasses. And after trying to time the shot between wind gusts, I was even able to get the balsam root reasonably sharp. I like the image except for one thing. I just do not like that parking lot in the lower left-hand corner. That's sort of a deal killer for me. I think two images really stand out for me on this trip. Both were shot with the Sony 16-35mm G Master lens on the 61 megapixel Sony A7R Mark IV camera, and were carefully focus stacked to produce images with lots of fine detail suitable for making large prints. You can literally see each grain of sand in the sand dune and hairs on the fiddleneck stems in the meadow below the buttes. Both images were made with the sun right on the horizon, giving the image beautiful color and fine texture. I would be interested to know what you think. Leave a comment below and let me know whether you like these images or which you like best. Thanks for joining me on this latest photo shoot. If you'd like to see more, be sure to subscribe to my channel and I'll see you again soon.